This video discusses issues related to setting the content or the inner HTML of scrollable containers in a mobile application. So you can see here we have a container that's shown with a red border, and it's got content in it that has been set to be scrollable. So you can see that I can go ahead here and scroll the content all the way down to the end where it says button last. So we've got some scrollable content here. Now let's say we'd like to change the inner HTML of this container to something else. So I'm going to just use the standard technique that many people might use, which is get a pointer to the container and then just set its inner HTML. So I go ahead here and I do that, and at first glance it appears like the action has worked. However, there's a lot more content than is visible here, and even though in the builder I have set this container to be scrollable, you can see here that it's no longer scrollable, and that's because by using the brute force method I overrode all of the code that is necessary to make the content scrollable. So now let's go ahead and rerun the component. So now we're back to where we started out, and this time instead of using the brute force method of setting the inner content here, what I'm going to do now is use this JavaScript function that's part of the alpha library called a5.u.element.setContent. So now when I do that, you can see again I've set the content, but this time the content is nicely scrollable. Now one particular issue that you need to be aware of is, let's say that at the time that I replaced the content here, I was scrolled all the way to the bottom, and now when I go here and set the content, I actually don't see anything because I'm scrolled to the bottom of this content window. I'd have to scroll it up to actually see anything. So this next example over here sets the content of the scrollable window and also sets the scroll position at the same time. So now when I go ahead now and click this button, I'm going to scroll to the top of the window, and then in this final example over here we're going to set the content, and this time we're going to set focus on one of the elements inside the content that we put into the window. So let's go ahead now and click this button, and you can see now we've basically set focus to an element that's at the end of the content window, and also the we animated it into view. So now that we've basically seen what problem we're trying to solve and different techniques, let's go back to the builder and look at the code. Let's pause now and pick this up in the next video. So we're continuing the video now on setting the inner HTML of scrollable containers. So you can see here we have a container, and we've said that drag scrolling is enabled on this container. So if we go and we run the component here, we see the drag scrolling taking place. So now here's our first button that does the brute force technique. So let's go look at the JavaScript here, and you can see that what we're doing is getting a pointer to the container. So that container 1 is this container over here. Then we're just constructing a long string by taking hello world and replicating it 20 times, and then what we're doing is we're adding at the end of this long string, we're just adding end of string over there, and then we're just simply setting the inner HTML of that container to the string. But by doing this, by setting the inner HTML using this brute force method, what we're effectively doing is blowing away the scroller. So this content now will no longer be drag scrollable. So now here's the technique that uses the JavaScript function a5.u.element.setContent. So again, everything else is the same as it was in the previous script. You can see here's pointed to the container. Here's our string, and then instead of saying le.innerHTML, we're using the a5.u.element.setContent, and then setting the content of this element to the string. And by using this method over here, we're preserving the scroll settings. So we'll go over here, go here and do this, and now you can see we've preserved our scroll settings. Now in this next example over here, what we've done is we still use the same function, but we're passing in an object now to specify that after we've set the content, what we'd like to do is set the X and the Y position of the scrollable content to the top left hand corner, but we're not going to pass in any additional options, so we're passing in a blank settings option object over here. So after we set the content, will be scrolled to the top left hand corner of that element. So let's again go here, and we can see now that we're scrolled here in this window to the very bottom, and then when we click this button, we're now scrolled to the top left hand corner. So, and now in this final example, you can see here what we're doing is we're still building our string in the same way as we did before, but then when we put the very last item into the long string, we're wrapping it in a span and giving the span an ID of 1. So now the object that we pass in over here specifies that after the content has been set, we'd like to set focus to this element, span 1, and we'd like to pass in the settings object over here that says animation and then allow true. So that means that when we set focus to this last element over here, we're going to animate it into view. So it might be difficult to see here in working preview, but you can see now we're going to bring that up and now set this with animation turned on, and you can see there how it animated into view. So basically what we've shown in this video is that when you are setting the content of a window or a container or any element that has been set to allow scrolling, setting the inner HTML of that element is going to destroy the scroll properties that were set up at design time. So therefore you do not want to use the brute force method of just setting inner HTML, but instead you want to use the function from the Alpha JavaScript library to set the content of the container by using the a5.u.element function. Thanks very much for watching.